Hey everyone, Ryan here, MandRproductions, and today I'm reviewing what could be argued as the most unique or weirdest LEGO Star Wars set ever in the 10018 Darth Maul. With 1,860 pieces, it released all the way back in 2001 for the low price of $150. I paid about $3,200 for the box you see in front of you. This set has skyrocketed in value because of its uniqueness and its scarcity. I'll talk about how you can get this set substantially cheaper later in the review, but first we need to talk about this box. It is the only set in LEGO Star Wars history that was only released in a black and white box. There was never a color variant of this box. I know my thumbnail may have been deceiving, but this box only ever came in black and white. Explaining why this is a bad idea would just be insulting to you, unless you're the one that came up with this idea. The 10019 Tantive 4 also originally released in a black and white box, but was later updated to be given a cover box that had color on it, that had matching box art to the UCS Star Destroyer, which made that a great combo of sets from the early 2000s. Darth Maul, on the other hand, was just outright retired instead of receiving an updated box with color. Now, there are a couple of other boxes nearly devoid of color like Darth Maul is in the UCS TIE Interceptor and UCS X-Wing. However, those boxes at least have colored logos. The actual color of the sets has a hint of blue to them instead of the straight black and white of Darth Maul, and at the very least, when you look at the back of the box, they show the entire set in color. If you look at the back of the Darth Maul box, you can just imagine what it would have looked like otherwise.
How do I know if this thing has any play features?
If unboxing counts as a play feature, it sure has at least one. So opening this up, inside, it looks like we've got a couple of white boxes with thumb tabs on them and a bunch of loose bags at the back. So while there's no numbered bags or boxes, we do have bags that are separated by the exact part that's inside. These are 2x3 black bricks. These are 2x4 black bricks. And so that would make separating the parts pretty easy to make the build a little bit easier. Speaking of the build, we have the instruction manual here, which is beautifully preserved for being over 20 years old inside of the box with no protection as you saw it come out, and the build was brutal. I built using digital instructions, and just first impression here, opening the physical ones, these look a little bit easier to do, but as you can see, the entire build is done in this top-down process, which is very abnormal compared to most LEGO Star Wars sets you would see, and so it turns out it's very easy to mess something up. The best process I had for this was to gather all of the parts at the start of each step to ensure that I at least had all of the parts I needed, and then I would know if I messed something up along the way because I'd have something extra. So it is a brutal build, one of the worst I have ever worked on, and something I do not want to have to do again. But certainly just how terrible this set was to build is part of what makes it one of the most unique sets in LEGO Star Wars history, and here are a bunch of the other sets available around the time of this set's released, and the very back will say, just imagine. Now to you, all of that may pale in comparison to just how weird and creepy the finished Darth Maul build actually looks. Examining this Darth Maul, we will start with the horns on top of his head, which are a bit confusing to build, but I think the look of them is really good for 2001 and for as basic and brick built as they are. The biggest downside I would say with them is how easily they are to knock off of the top of his head, either when you're moving the set or if you just happen to bump by the set while it's on display. It's just something that I find to be a small annoyance with the set, but overall it's a big display set. It's going in a case for me. That really doesn't matter. The rest of the top of his head is nicely rounded, and again, for as brick built as this set is, it does have some nice contouring, so I do really appreciate that, and the size helps. The ears, on the other hand, are a little bit more fun, and again, for early 2000s, very brick built design, no special sloped pieces. They look surprisingly like ears. They did a really good job. And this one actually has a piercing on this particular ear, so you have a chrome piece sticking out from there, which definitely adds a little something to the side of Maul. The other ear is essentially the same design, less the piercing. Moving on, we have what is unquestionably the best part of this LEGO model, and that's the face for Darth Maul, with the very creepy Sith eyes using the translucent orange circular piece that really looks like an eye with the small pupil inside. We've got the yellow brick behind, which really sells the Sith eye vibe to me. The markings throughout the forehead and face are phenomenally accurate, again, for the early 2000s, with very few, if any, specialized bricks in this set to make it look as good as it does. It's startlingly good looking, but it's also startlingly creepy looking. I think the mouth or teeth area is definitely my least favorite area on this set. It's definitely a bit cheesy to say the least. I just don't think it looks very good, but also most of the time I'm looking at this model, at least when I'm standing above it, I don't see that at all. But if you're looking at it from a lower angle, you're going to see it. So it just depends on how you have it displayed. Now, as I explained, essentially the entire Darth Maul is built bottom to top, except for a couple sections, the chin and the nose. Most interestingly, the nose, because there's actually a small gap here that you can slightly make out, especially at the top here. They kind of tile it off. Not really sure why they didn't tile it off up here and they left the studs exposed. But regardless, this entire section actually is quite easily removable, and it's just kind of funny to see Darth Maul without a nose. The next section of Darth Maul is the actual bust part of it. Otherwise, you're just buying a decapitated Darth Maul, which they could have sold, and that would have cut the cost on the set by probably 50 or 60 bucks, which could have made it a $100 or less set back in the day, which would have been an incredible deal. But of course, busts exist for a reason, and it makes it quite an elegant display. It's also the half of the build you do first. You set it aside, you build the Darth Maul head, and then you attach it on top like so. It's supposed to kind of be his robes around him, and so you'll see a bit of spacing between his neck and the actual clothing, and even though it's the same color, there's still a nice separation there. It is odd what Lego was doing in the early 2000s. They would just throw these Lego bricks on things. It stands out, certainly. It doesn't look the greatest. I don't know why they thought it was a great idea, but they did, and so it's there. Now, the Darth Maul bust needed additional support, and instead of just building more of his body, they actually just put a bit of a tube underneath him that supports the entire Darth Maul with the front of his chest very nicely. I think it's a fantastic, nicely hidden stand underneath Darth Maul. It's not too flashy. It's not in the way. You really don't even notice it unless you're looking for it. There's really almost nothing else like it. Its closest cousin back in the early 2000s was the Yoda set, which had a similar building technique, but the Yoda was a character, not a bust like Darth Maul. There was a canceled bust of Watto, which would have found itself in the same category of Lego Star Wars bust as Darth Maul, but clearly that one wouldn't have sold well, so it was a good idea to cancel it. The Maul bust is certainly nothing like the modern Lego Star Wars helmet sets. It is more akin, though, to the Darth Vader and Sith Trooper busts that were made, the only other two busts in Lego Star Wars history, but perhaps the Black Panther bust is the closest thing we'll see to what would be a modern Lego Star Wars bust. This Darth Maul would go pretty hard with his lightsaber in front of him like the Black Panther has his arms crossed in front of him. Now, I think this set is excellent. It's absolutely one of the most unique sets in Lego Star Wars history, and granted it's of a fan favorite character now in Darth Maul, it's something a lot of people are gonna want to own, but the price is prohibitive. New in box, over $3,000. Used on sites like eBay, you're looking at $1,000. But I did say at the beginning of the video, I would tell you how to get this set for a much cheaper price, and that would be parting it together. By creating a wanted list on Rebreakable and transferring over to Bricklink, you can actually buy all of the parts for this set for somewhere under $500. That's half the price of the cheapest used one I found on eBay as of the recording of this video. I would just highly recommend replacing the cylinder pieces underneath with something else, as those are expensive parts. Anyway, I'm incredibly happy to finally have this set in my collection. It's a set that for the longest time I just thought I would never be able to own, but alas, here it is right in front of me, and it's even better than I thought. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Leave a like while you're there, and you can check out more LEGO Star Wars reviews on the end screen now.